Thanks for tuning in to Tisha Talks Live at 10:45. If you were tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, welcome. Or if you're watching the replay, we love having you, regardless of if you're here live or catching it later. But thanks so much for being here. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Rachel.
Happy Friday to you, Tisha.
Thank you. I mean, I know this was a short week with Labor Day, but man, am I so excited that we're at Friday. It's been a week. It's been a fun week. How about you? Are you excited? You excited for the weekend?
I am excited for the weekend. I'm a little less excited because I found out it's going to be cold and rainy this weekend. Aww. I was hoping to get some hiking in, but it's all right. It's all good.
It's all right. It's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, thanks so much, Rachel, for being here today. Rachel Jenks is out of Colorado, and we were just talking about that in the green room. So I may be seeing her in person in October. I want to give a shout out to Emmy Saavedra, who was the one that introduced us. We love Emmy. Emmy is awesome people. If you don't know Emmy, definitely connect with Emmy. But today we're talking about one of my favorite topics. We're talking about owning your difference and personal branding and the power of authenticity. And Rachel and I were just talking about how in the green room, tech problems happen, and that's authenticity showing up. Like how you dealing? How you dealing with your cat? Like that's just walking across your desk and the tails in your face and all that stuff. When you're not expecting that. Like I don't know about you, Rachel, but I've totally thrown perfection out the window a long time ago. I don't even subscribe to that word. I hate that word. In fact, like, what do you think about that word?
Yeah, I agree. I think so. As a ballet dancer, as my first career, perfectionism was very, very much part of my life for most of my life. And everything was about like constantly tweaking and constantly tweaking and constantly tweaking. Hey, I just want to give a shout out to Farah and Royce and Florence. Good to see you. Glad you're with us.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is a difference between perfection and continuous improvement, right? Mm-hmm. Because there are always things we continuously improve. And so I think for me, I got bottled down in perfection for a lot of my life. And so whether it was a project I was working on or a goal I had set for myself, like if it wasn't perfect, it wasn't done. Mm-hmm. And there comes a point, it's funny, this story is coming to me. So when I worked at the production company, I had a boss who would literally walk by my office and yell, fork, Rachel, like stick a fork in it. It's done. Like stop, leave it alone. It's done. And, I think there is a balance, right? Because there is excellence. And so I think this topic is an interesting one because some people have thrown perfection so far out the window that you're like, it's okay to bring it back a little bit of excellence and perfection and professionalism. Like that's okay. But then there are those of us who I feel like you and I more have been, who have gotten so into the perfectionism that if it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm not going to whatever. And then that ends up holding us back. And so one of the things that I think has come out of everybody kind of migrating to online is there's so much more permission to be real.
Right.
I'm no longer mortified if my cat's tail walks across my face while I'm on camera because the odds of that happening are very high. He happens to be asleep right now, but I'm just waiting for it. So, whether it's dogs barking in the background or kids coming in, mommy, I need this, or whatever. Like, I think that we have become much more comfortable with real. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually very healthy because I know you and I have talked about this before, that up until not all that long ago, there was this idea that in order to show up, whether it be on camera or in a meeting or whatever, everything had to be polished and it had to be perfect. And that kind of ties into our conversation topic even today, right? And there's all this conversation about like building this personal brand and creating this persona. And you and I have talked about that offline, and that just drives me crazy because in all of those things, you're creating this persona that's not real.
Mm-hmm.
It's not who you are. So rather than, first of all, not do anything because you're afraid it's not perfect,
Right.
or not, put yourself out there unless it's all put together, or put out something that's artificial. How about we just be real and show up as who we are? And I think that that is something, a good thing, if there is a bright spot, right, that has come out of the past few years, is people are so much more comfortable with the real, and there's so much more permission to be real. And then I would add this to it. It's even become expected now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are showing up like, no offense, I don't know why I'm going here, but no offense to anybody who has the Zoom backgrounds, but if you show up and you're talking to somebody and they have the Zoom background that's like the beach and it's like this luxury mansion, right? And then all of a sudden, like, their dog walks through the middle of it. It's just like, yeah, that's actually, and you see like the messy room behind them. That's not actually where you are. So anyway, I'm kind of going on and on about this more than I intended, but I love the permission that is prevalent now to be real, because I think it's healthy, and I think it really feeds into this topic of authenticity we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Hey, dude, we are totally blowing up the comments. Thank you
I
so
see
much.
that.
Everybody
Hey,
that's
Terry,
on.
hey,
We've
Nat,
got
hey,
Terry
Louise.
Kane. Hey, Terry.
Hey,
Thank you so
Norma.
much. Look at this. He's like,
Marcello.
Tisha, not Trisha. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. And then we've got Marcello who's joining us. He says, okay, I guess like me to change my luxury mansion background. Yeah. I was on a call with a woman not too long. Well, this was, I guess, COVID days, like when everybody was Zoom. And it was the craziest thing because she had her baby sitting on her lap and she had this amazing Earth planet background. And I could only see the baby once in a while when she moved. And I was like, turn the freaking virtual background off. It is the weirdest thing watching your baby come in and out of planet Earth. Please. Like, I was just so distracted because I'm like, I can't deal. Like, could you please just take it off? And true. I mean, Norma, be genuine, amen, be you. Yeah. This is what it is. Like, I don't care. I mean, you see my background. My office is kind of a hot mess sometimes, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So, Luis Melinda saying, beautiful day, beautiful topic, beautiful lady. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for being on. I know Nat Handler, look at this. He's even joining us from his shoulder surgeon's office while he awaits his appointment. So,
my goodness, that's dedication right there.
That is dedication. That's a good friend of mine. So thank you guys for being on with us live today. Happy Friday to all of you. So grateful that you're here today. Florence Love, thank you for being on with us as well. And I know Norma Strange I've known for years, like before when I just started my first company back in 2004, and her last name, if you see, is Strange.
Yeah.
And I love that she plays off of it. I can only be strange.
That's amazing.
There's one thing too that my daughter Ellie, she's been putting on her backpack and her lunchbox, Rachel. She keeps saying, I'm the weirdo. And she is embracing it. And I'm like, yes, girl, get it. Weird. I'm okay with weird. Be weird. I don't want to be the same as everybody else. I want to disrupt the game a little bit. I want to be memorable. And I think that that's what we're going to be talking about today too, Rachel, is really about owning your difference. Not following the path of this is what everybody else is doing. I'm just gonna do that too, but actually doing something different. And I know you and I probably have so many stories, case studies of how being a little different, going a different path actually benefited us in so many more ways and introduced us to so many more people because we decided to change the game. So I'm excited about this topic. Let's dive in. Let's dive in.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks again to everybody who's tuning in. This is so great. I know we have about 8 or 9 people who are just on LinkedIn too. So this is
awesome.
Awesome. I always say this, guys. I'm just going to come out and say this. I love live streaming. Rachel and I talked about this. I love it because it is real. It is authentic. You never know what you're going to get. If you've been following me for this month and last month, you know that it was a crap show with technology. But we got through it and we showed up and you guys were there. So you guys got to experience that. But here's what I'm going to say. I love live streaming because it is what it is. We just go with it. And this is where the conversations happen. But I like it because I get to learn from the guest that's on. I get to learn so much. So I look at Tisha Talks as like my education hour. I get to sit here and surround myself with some cool people that I obviously want to meet in real life. And I get to learn from them and I get to teach you something if you are tuning into this live replay. But I'm not fixated on the number of people that are in the comments. I'm not fixated on the number of people that I see viewing this because I know we're all busy people and you're going to come in, come out, check it later, maybe not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. To me, the focus is on the guest and being with the guest and being intentional with the guest and learning from the guest. So I just want to put that out there because I know a lot of us, we get so fixated on the vanity metrics of
that could be a whole other conversation.
I know. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine and he was telling me this week, he was telling me that he has a podcast and he's approaching people to be on this podcast. A lot of their questions are, well, I don't want to be on your podcast unless you have X amount of subscribers and X amount of views and I need to kind of look at all the stats. And I'm kind of this impression that if one person is watching and they really, really, you really made a dent in their life, you really made a difference in their life, is that enough?
Yeah.
Is it enough? So yes, let's get after this, shall we?
All right, let's get after it.
So, you've given me some questions too, but what would you say is branding in your personal, professional opinion, Rachel? What is branding?
Okay. So there's so many directions I want to go right now, but I will answer that question. So branding, in order to truly understand the power of it, we have to think about it in reverse. Branding, most people think about in terms of like cattle brand days, right? Oh, I put my mark on this. I have a brand.
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't. You put your design on something. Congratulations. That's all you have.
Congrats.
So in order to truly understand the power of branding, we have to think about it in reverse. And I want to pause just for a minute because this kind of ties into what you said about vanity metrics. And it was such a good point you made that I just want to touch there for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Because even when it comes to branding, people get this idea that it's all about metrics and it's all about the numbers and it's all about that. Here's the reality. I would rather have an engaged audience than a huge audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a huge audience and you're not making an impact in somebody's life, or they're not paying attention to where you can make that impact, what good does that do anybody? You just wasted everybody's time.
Right.
And so many of the people who have the numbers are inflated because they paid $5 to have every bot on some part of the world like them and then unsubscribe and now they're shadow banned and they don't know why. There's all this stuff, and that ties into authenticity because it's not authentic. And so many people, can I like bunny trail for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, this is not where I thought I was going to go, but this is apparently the direction we're going in today. So there must be somebody here who needs it. So I hope this helps you. So I had a conversation just last week with somebody. It was a coffee meet and greet. And we had a great conversation and we were she was fully engaged and she was like, wow, I can tell you have so much, wisdom in this. And I love what you have to say. I really resonate with you. So here's the thing. I'd like to invite you to be a speaker at my thing, but I have to see how many followers you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this whoa, wait a minute. We've just been talking for 20 minutes. We've been sharing our stories with each other. We've been connecting. And now all of a sudden, the metrics matter? Is it really about the metrics to you? And so that to me was an example of a conversation that at that point in the conversation, I'm not saying the beginning wasn't, but was inauthentic. Mm-hmm. First of all, nobody likes to be treated that way. I was like, you know what? I don't want to speak at your thing anyway, if that's what it's about for you, honestly. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, being invited to speak on a podcast, like you were just talking about, doing a live stream, Is it about the numbers or is it about the people? Because there is such a difference. And when you show up authentically and genuinely to serve people, that's what makes you stand out. So going back to answering your question now, in order to truly understand the power of branding, we have to think about it in reverse. It's not about us putting our mark on something, right? Everybody jumps to this stuff. It's about the mark that every interaction that anyone has with you on any level, that interaction makes in their minds. So we're not putting our mark on anything. The experience that somebody has with us puts that mark on their minds, whether it's a first impression or 101st impression. It's still that mark. And the thing about branding, and I know you and I have nerded out about this, and will inevitably much more in days to come. But the true power of branding is trust. And the most powerful commodity we have in business is trust. People do business with people we trust. I know I sure do. I know you do, Tisha.
I do too.
So this is why trust is so important. And every interaction that anyone has with you is that opportunity to build or break trust. In order to think about brand, we have to think about holistic experience. We have to think about consistency, and we have to think about trust. If you're not thinking about trust, you'll miss it. And here's a couple of ways that I see people miss it all the time. One of which is branding for your audience, which is a lie. Because you are not communicating who you are, you're being a clone of them. And by the way, you're not giving them anything to remember about you. And it would be super creepy if I chopped my hair and dyed it and changed my name to Tisha and started drinking coffee and right? That would be so weird. That would be real weird.
That would be a little weird.
And yet businesses do this all the time in their so-called branding, and they don't realize that's what they're doing. And it just makes me sad. I'm like, no. Like, this is actually having the opposite impact of what it is that you really want to do. And so I think even, back to what we were talking about at the beginning, this idea of dogs barking, cats walking across, the baby coming in and out of the world is so hilarious. I can totally picture it. Like, the reason that I think that kind of authenticity that's not so polished, you look at how powerful lives are when you're just walking down the street and you pull out your phone and you're like, hey, this thought just came to me. All this stuff. The reason that is so powerful is because it's real. And when someone is real, it establishes this feeling of, oh, I can trust that person. It also makes the other person feel like, oh, I'm not the only one who has a cat's tail walk across my face all the time, And so It goes back to this brand experience that is authentic, that is building trust. And it's about the people, and it's about the relationship. It's not about a performance. If you are showing up on camera to give a performance, that's what's going to come across, and that's the interaction people are going to have with you. But if you are showing up, I'm just using camera, for example, because we were talking about live stream, whether it's a meeting or a live stream or whatever it is, like if you are showing up authentically for the people who are present and to serve and to bring the value that you have to share, that is going to translate so much more powerfully than perfectionism.
I agree. All right. I want to hold on that moment, Rachel. And then I have a quick story to tell you too. Yeah. I love these comments that are coming through. Thank you guys for blowing up the chat here. Marcello saying, I agree 1,000%. I'd rather have a community than have a luxury mansion equivalent in metrics.
I love that, Marcello.
So true. Yeah. And I've been in your shoes, Rachel. I've gotten on calls just like you were saying, where the conversation is going great. The person's kind of buttering me up in a way, complimenting me. Oh my gosh, you're so awesome, whatever. And then they're like, so how many subscribers do you have? What's your email list like? Do you have at least 20,000 people on your subscriber list? Because that's what we're looking for. Oh, you don't have it? Well, shoot, I'm sorry. This opportunity is not for you. And you're right. I walk away going, are you crazy? Like, you just took this amount of time away from my day. And if you are fixated on that, how do you know those people that are on their subscriber list even open their email?
Or are real?
Yeah.
They're not made up. I mean, like, it's so much of that out there.
it drives me nuts. Like when I get followed on Instagram, for instance, and I go check the person's profile, like they put 2 pictures up, and yet somehow they have 50,000 followers. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. All right. I just don't see it. I don't know if that's truly accurate. Yeah. I mean, we could go on and on and on for days. I want to give a shout out to Norma because she's really putting some good comments out here. She says, alone in a sea of thousands floating nowhere or cherished by a core engaged group of loyal, sold out brand advocates who take you everywhere and refer you all the time. Boom. Boom. That wasn't even in sync. Yeah. Thank you so much. I agree. Like I'm on LinkedIn. Rachel and I are on LinkedIn. I don't have this million followers. I'm not aiming for that. I'm not just striving to get there because I know a lot of those people are people that I'll never, ever, ever engage with. What I love is that I know Rachel. I know that I go to Denver. I know that I can go see her. I know that I have this community built up of good people that we have each other's backs.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing about community. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Tim. We were just talking about this when he's going to networking events. He's like, these are just people that are trying to fill their pipeline, but it's just so surface level. They're not digging deep. They're not continuing the conversation. They're just like, yeah, I have all of these folks. Yeah. All of these folks. So, we're kind of getting that badassery coming out for both of us, I think, Rachel, on this topic.
Totally.
We're just so heated about this topic.
No, and I love it because I feel like we're going in a little bit different direction, but it's still related because we're talking about authenticity in business relationships. That's what it's about. What your friend Tim speaking of authenticity, what your friend Tim brought up is so true. And the way that I say it is that trust comes before transactions. When you focus on the relationship, the transactions will follow. But if you skip to the transaction and you miss the relationship, not only do you miss out on what you could have gained from that relationship, from getting to know that person, but also, I'm going to get a little feisty, but now you've stepped over into manipulation.
Yeah.
Because now it's not a two-way conversation. It's what can I get from you?
Exactly.
And whenever you approach the conversation, whether it's a networking meeting or a sales interaction or whatever, whenever you approach it only as what can I get from you, that's a manipulation. That is not a real conversation, and that is not a real relationship. And nobody likes that in real life. So why is this okay in business? Speaking of LinkedIn, like how many DMs do you get from people all the time that are like, they clearly haven't read your profile. They don't know anything about what you do. And they just start trying to sell you. And you're like, hi, I don't know you. And so the way that I like to talk about this is that I'm in the dating season of my life, right? So if I'm at something, sitting in a restaurant or whatever, and some guy came up to me and popped the question, I'd be like, police? Like, what is this? This is weird. And yet in business, people do this all the time. That's what you just did. Hey, I know we've never met. You want to get married? Like, hold up, or another one of, can we just go there? Or another one of my favorites, like, okay, if I'm sitting at that table and a guy comes up, he's like, tell me what's your biggest pain?
I'm hitting my head.
I don't know you. Like, I'm not sharing that with you. Like, you haven't earned that place, or some of the other things. So you have to think about it. And I know you and I are so on the same page about this. So I'm just going to say we have to remember to think about it. Business and real life aren't different. I don't know why that myth ever got propagated, but business and real life aren't different. People are people. We do business with humans. Real business is H to H. One of my mentors told me that in the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, and that has stayed with me ever since. Real business is H to H. There are real humans involved. And so we have to approach business just like we would any other relationship. So if you think about that scenario that I gave, whether it's dating or friendship or whatever, it starts with hello. It starts with getting to know each other. It starts with spending time together. And then you get to know, hey, is this person really who they say they are? And you build trust. And then, okay, maybe let's go to coffee. Maybe let's go to dinner. Maybe let's go to a movie, right? Again, whether it's friendship or dating, I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
So real relationships require trust, and trust is earned. And it takes time. And it takes, like, real relationships are also a two-way street. And so when it comes to business, in order to have authenticity in business, I recently had the incredible, oh my gosh, like literally dream come true honor of having Bob Berg, the go-giver himself, on my podcast.
Mr. Bob.
It was amazing. And we talked about the law of authenticity and how so many people approach authenticity like something you just slap on. This is a company value. No, it's not about being a company value. It's about the life that you live. And that's what we're talking about right now, Tisha. It's about the life that you live. So whether it's a networking meeting or how you approach people on LinkedIn or how you have conversations or how you show up in the world, it's all the same. Are you living an authentic life? Are you treating relationships with honor? Are you approaching this for what can I give? Do you have a heart to serve? Like, all of that will shine through in an instant. And by the way, that's branding.
That is branding. Good stuff. All right, more comments. And I have a creepy story since we're talking about creepy.
Okay.
By the way, I'm retired from branding myself, so I earn the right to check advocate for these professionals. Listen up. Rachel's speaking truth. Find good people and keep them. It's how I've enjoyed a fruitful professional career. Yeah, you hit on some great points there, Rachel, just about H to H, treating people like humans, not like, oh, you're expendable, I can get rid of you. I had a woman on LinkedIn who clearly didn't do a lot of research on me, but she's like, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I'm like, let's see, I've written 3 and I've co-authored 5. So yeah, you didn't do the research on me, yet you're just kind of putting me in a box, So do your due diligence, do the research. You really want to meet that person, figure out who that person is. Another great one here. Check your intention. It's not how can I help you? It's probably manipulation marketing, not authentic brand. True. Love this.
Norma, we should just pull you on the show.
I know. Norma's good. Like I said, one of the first people I met. What is that, Norma? Probably about 18 years ago, 19 years ago. And here she is. Back in my corner. So loyalty is a big thing. Royce saying, when I was on radio and had 50,000 listeners, when I was asked, what size is your audience? I'd always answer 1.
I love that.
That is good stuff.
That is good stuff because that's what it's about. Like, it's about the person that's in front of you. And so now, obviously, in this moment, there are multiple people in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is important to remember when it comes to content. We'll just talk about content for a minute.
Yeah.
People consume content one-on-one. And so that was something that was huge for me when I started my podcast, is a mentor said to me, hey, have a conversation with one person. And when you do that, people feel it and they feel engaged with you and they feel like part of this conversation, whether it's marketing or content or whatever, right? Like, now you're not shouting at them, you're engaging them in the conversation. And the same is true in building a business relationship. And it is all about that one. So I love how you brought that up. That's really, truly beautiful. You've got some incredible people on the stream. I'm like, I want to get to know all of you. Let's just bring you all on the show and drink coffee and hang out because y'all are awesome.
See, and this is the thing, Rachel, this is why I always love being a guest on live streams, because I never know who's watching and I get to engage with them, right? Yeah. So I get to tap into the networks of other people, and that is what grows the community and the connections. All right. Yes,
I love
Terry.
What Terry just said.
Yeah, Terry.
Yes.
We have said for a while that your brand walks on 2 feet, meaning no one person is responsible for great service, but one person can actually ruin the experience. Oh, yes. I actually changed my title. Chief Executive Officer just sounded so to me. It just sounded so stiff. So I actually took this from my friend Steve Ricks. He calls himself the Chief Experience Officer. And I love that so much. And I'm like, that's it. I want to give people an experience, no matter where we are, no matter if I'm hosting an event, on a stage, on a live stream, whatever it is. I like that word, experience. And that's what we're talking about here. It's the experience you give people, the experience you leave with them. I was in a upbeat bar class yesterday, Rachel. And this, I love that. I mean, you being a dancer, so a lot of plies and a lot of,
Oh, yeah.
dance moves, pirouettes, things like that. And the instructor, she was very new to the class, but I love that when she was checking people in, she was like, she would look at our ticket. She was like, "Oh, hello, Tisha. Oh, hello, Jane. Oh, hello." And she would always say, "Thank you so much for being in this class." She was grateful because this is her class. We're all there, right? As I am, my thighs are burning. And I'm trying to smile through the pain because I'm like, "Gah," She looks over at me and she's like, "Hey, Tisha, how's that going for you? Doing okay over there?" And I was like so touched because this is a room of 30 or so people all burning. And she called me out. She looked at me, she smiled. "Hey, Tisha, how's it going? Are you doing okay over there?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm doing good." But that experience of just remembering my name is so powerful. So, so powerful.
It is. It is. I love that you brought that up because you don't know this. We haven't talked about this at all. But I am actually early in the process of becoming certified as a bar instructor.
Yes!
So I very much relate to that. And, when you go into something like a bar class and it is so intense, to have that recognition, because you're already feeling like my entire body is shaking. Am I doing it wrong? Am I stupid? Just all this stuff. Am I going to live through this class? These are all the thoughts that are going through your mind in that moment. And so to have somebody recognize you and say, "Hey, I see you and you're doing a good job."
Yeah.
And what you're experiencing is normal. Like the other night, I was in class and I had this I don't know if I'm going to get through this, because for those of you who are not familiar with bar, the entire point is to fatigue a specific muscle or muscle group as quickly as possible. So it's literally this is how I describe it to my friends. It's like you have this feeling, first you're all right, and then you're like, "I may fall over, probably die. Okay, next exercise." Right? It's kind of what it is. And so it's super, super intense. And everything was shaking. And I was starting to feel like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm probably shaking more than anybody else in the room. Am I doing it wrong?" Whatever. And the instructor looked over at me, same thing has happened to you, called me by name and said, "Hey, Rachel, awesome shaking. Your body's changing right now."
Yes.
And it was just this
Transformation.
moment. Yeah. It was just this moment of "Hey, I see you. I recognize you. I want you to know you're not crazy. You're not alone. And actually, what's going on right now in your body is exactly what's supposed to be happening."
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
that's
you're going to make such an awesome
huge.
instructor, Rachel.
Thank
Awesome.
you. I'm so excited about it. That's going to be such a fun side hustle. And for me, because my first career was in professional ballet, it just feels like so full circle. And, my whole life, no matter what else was going on in my life, whenever I got to the bar, I was home. And so it
Yeah.
just feels like coming home. And so even that, right? That experience is branded in my mind as
Mm-hmm.
coming home, even though I know there are going to be moments that I'm like, "I don't know if I really want to be doing this right now." It's still coming home. So whether it's a bar class or a coffee shop or whatever, or service that you provide somebody, I think again, this goes back to this whole idea of H to H. And so one of the things that I'm really passionate about as I am pursuing my instructor journey for bar is, how would I want to feel if it was my first class? And those things like you just brought up and that I brought up from my story this week, that matters to somebody. And so whenever we can step back and think about the other person in the equation, how would I want to feel in this moment? What thoughts might be going through their mind? How can I help them make them feel at ease? How can I help them feel honored? How can I
Mm-hmm.
help them move forward? Again, that's approaching a conversation, whatever it is, from this place of, "I'm here to serve, I'm here to give, and I'm going to treat you with honor as a fellow human being, as you deserve to be respected and treated." And so whether it's marketing or customer service, it's still all branding.
It's all branding. Let me go ahead and throw some comments up here
Yeah,
too.
go for
Terry's
it.
saying, I think people do not realize or think about the experience. They are doing a job reading a script, non purposeful. Connecting authentically can be done through a script by acknowledging we're speaking to people. People have intrinsic value, period.
Yeah.
And
Well
Norma,
said, Terry.
yeah, well said. I like showing up, excited to meet new people and learn about them and having them feel energized and encouraged, lift others on your journey.
100%.
Absolutely. 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 I get excited about that too. Good stuff. I do want to ask you a quick question. Okay, so we hear the word branding.
Yes.
And then we hear the word personal branding. And so I'd
Yes.
love for you to talk about what is the differentiator? Like, let's go into that topic because
Let's go there.
people are like, I have a brand. And I'm like, you have like a company brand, but what about you? So tell us a little bit about the difference between the two, Rachel.
So again, every experience that anybody has with you is that opportunity to build or break trust. That's your brand. But here's the reality. In today's marketplace, it is a noisy marketplace. And if you are only marketing your business, you are trying to break through the noise.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't only do business with businesses, people do business with people we trust,
Right.
which goes back to this conversation. So, this is why your personal brand is so powerful. Because if you think about the people that you've met in the last 24 hours, right? So, for me, one of them is this bar instructor that I just mentioned. Her name is Erin. I can, I can tell you that she was such a good instructor. She did such a good job of making people feel seen and valued, right? So, how am I talking about her? Like all of these things, I had one interaction with her, but it's so memorable because it was a person.
Yeah.
If I think about the businesses that I've met in the last 24 hours, those same emotions aren't coming to mind. That same memorability isn't coming to mind, no matter how good their ads were, right? So, this is the power of your personal brand. People are connecting not only with what you do, but with who you are. And the thing about a personal brand that I know you get so passionate about as well, Tisha, is that no matter how many other people are selling your service, selling the same sprocket you do, whatever, there is one you on the planet. That's why part of my visual brand, which by the way, this is your visual brand. It is not the entirety of your brand. Let's just clear that right up.
Exactly.
But that's why my visual brand includes a fingerprint. Because there is no one in the world, nor has there ever been, nor will there ever be, exactly like you. And no matter how many people are doing the exact same thing, there is nobody like you. And let's just touch on that for a minute, right? Because, I think it was Royce that brought this up before about I had 50,000 people, but my audience was one. If we are constantly looking around at what our competition is doing, which is what so much of marketing lingo says to do, bad idea. You know why? Because you're so busy looking around. Where are you not looking at? The person in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
The person you're here to serve, the person you're here to impact, the person you're here to bring hope to. I love that, Norma. So whether it is, your marketing or a sales conversation or whatever, if you're constantly looking around, then you're not looking in front. And when you focus on the person in front of you, there is something unique that only you can give that person the way that you can. You have a unique voice that is unique to you. And there is literally a frequency your voice releases that no one else can, the same way that you do. There's a unique authority that you bring based not only on your professional expertise, but your personal experiences as well. And you put that all together, and now you're showing up in a way that nobody else can. There is a unique identity of who you are. There are unique ways that you serve people. There are unique perspectives that you have. All of this is unique to you. So do you want to just market your business and this is the services we provide and whatever? Or do you want to show up as uniquely you? Because when you do that, you will organically stand out because there was no one else. Now, by the way, you have to be discoverable to be discovered. That's a whole other topic, right?
We'll bring you back on for that one, Rachel.
All right.
I know we have a lot to talk about there.
It's a big do, for sure. But when you show up, that's why I'm so passionate about this idea of owning your difference. And I know we're almost at time, so I won't go into my personal story about that, to be continued. But when you show up authentically as who you are, then you are uniquely bringing to the person in front of you what you uniquely can give them to impact their lives, to serve them, to solve their problems, all of the things that we're here to do in business. And so this is the difference between just branding, which is still powerful, by the way, but the difference between overall branding and your personal brand. And when it comes to building know, like, and trust, that goes way, 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 way deeper.
Absolutely. Good stuff. I love it, Rachel. And I know we are coming to the time, and I want to make sure that I give you an opportunity, Rachel. So share with us what you're working on now and how people can reach out to you. You guys know she's on LinkedIn under Rachel Jenks, but let us know, like, how do people reach you?
Yeah. So you can find me at linkedin.com/in/the brand boss. Because I've had some people be like, there's a lot of Rachel Jenks. I'm like, but there's only one brand boss. So look for the brand boss. You can find the Brand Boss Show everywhere you listen to your podcasts. You can also find me at the Brand Boss Show on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And I want to kind of touch on what Norma said because it ties into what I'm working on now that I'm excited about. So Norma says, I used to hate my voice, so I got over myself, and it's been very effective to embrace my unique sound. I have that exact same story, Norma. I used to hate the sound of my voice recorded, and now I've had a podcast for 3 years, and I speak in all of the things. And here's why I'm so passionate about what I do, and I will share the story as quickly as I can. But I've been in marketing for over 23 years. I am 41. I don't look it. I am not afraid to share my age. And, and the reason that I'm so focused on personal branding is because it's the journey that I walked, right? So in 2019, I started the Brand Boss Show podcast. Didn't even have any gear. I spoke into the voice memo app of my phone, speaking of progress, not perfection, because that's what I had. And it was all about empowering business owners with teaching them what branding is, what it isn't, what makes it work, not work, marketing, etc., so they could be empowered to make informed decisions and not fall prey to what everybody else said, oh, you should be doing this, whether or not it was right for them, or feel like they had to keep up with every trend out there or whatever. I'm like, no, I want to put the power back in your hands to be the boss of your brand. So that's where the Brand Boss Show originated. And then people started calling me the brand boss. And at first I was super not comfortable with that. I was like, no, I don't need it to be about me. It's not about me. This is about you. This is about empowering you. And then in January of 2020, I realized it was time for me to own my identity as the brand boss, not because I needed some title, but because in order for other people to step out and step into the fullness of who they are and be the brand boss that they're here to be and have the impact they're here to have, they needed to see me do it first. And so I went on this journey of first having to discover the authentic identity of my personal brand, which is who I am and also who I am not, because I have permission to not be who I'm not, and so do you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is my unique voice? What is my unique authority? All of that. And then figure out, okay, so now that I'm clear about who I am, I have to be discoverable in order to be discovered. So how can I make sure that I'm showing up in the right way, in the right places, having the right conversations with the right people, right? Now that I've identified my personal brand, how do I amplify it in the marketplace? And then the next step was, because I was a workaholic for way too much of my life, and I don't believe that marketing should run my life or your life or anybody else's, right? We've got other things to do. So how do I do this not from a place of overwhelm? How can I see more results from less effort? How can I multiply this impact? So identify, amplify, and multiply the impact of my personal brand is this journey that I've been on for the last 3 years. Well, then I know you and I talked about this, Tisha, but in the spring, I started having more and more conversations with business owners and realized that while I have a done for you branding and marketing agency, if you don't take this journey internally, if you don't walk the journey that I've walked, you're not going to be showing up as the brand boss that you are in your conversations with people, in your networking meetings and whatever. It's just going to be somebody else doing it for you, which is good, but it's time for you to take that journey. So that's why this summer I launched my 12-week Own Your Difference personal branding coaching program, where this journey that I've walked over the past 3 years of learning to get really, really clear on identifying, amplifying, and multiplying the impact of my personal brand, I can now walk you through in 12 weeks. So that is what I'm particularly passionate about. That is the Own Your Difference personal branding coaching program. You can find that at bit.ly/own your difference, or it's also on my website, or you can just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a DM. I'll tell you all about it. So that's the coaching program. I also offer one-on-one strategy consultations and those done for you services.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I love that journey that you shared, because you're right. I think that you and I have such a similar journey, because I couldn't build a brand without knowing myself first and going through the experiences and figuring it out. Like for you, you're known as the brand boss. And I think we shared, like on my LinkedIn, it's authentic with a touch of badass. And that's that's the brand. But that was something that like you had, someone came up with that for me. And I was like, I really love that brand. And I want to own that brand, and I need to grow into that brand. And that is part of all the journey, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that we have such a similar path too, Rachel. And I mean, we could talk for hours and hours about this subject. So yes, we will in person in Denver over coffee or cocktails, one of the two.
Oh, yes.
But yes, let's definitely have you back on the show, because I think we can talk about the discovering you part. Yeah. You have to be discoverable, because a lot of people miss that step. They're like, I have my brand, now what? So let's talk about that next time. And yes, please connect with Rachel. She is awesome. Awesome. Thanks again to Emmy for, introducing the two of us. And we will catch you guys on LinkedIn. I am off for the week. So she said she's 41. I'm turning 43 next Thursday, September 15th. So I'm taking next Friday off for my birthday and hitting the town with my bestie. So I will be gone and not on Tisha Talks Live, but we'll be back on September 23rd. And I just want to give a big shout out. Thank you so much for everybody who's tuned into this today, who's commented, who's going to be watching this. We really appreciate your time. And I just want to say thank you again, Rachel. This was amazing, as always.
Thank you so much for having me, Tisha. This was so much fun. And just a huge shout out, everybody engaging in the comments. You dropped so much wisdom. We could have had you all on the show and all sharing the things that you shared today. This was just such a special conversation to be part of, and I'm very honored to have been part of it. So thank you again, Tisha.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and we will catch you back in a couple weeks. See ya. All right.